Hello everyone and welcome back to the gaming tier of Patreon. Today we have a number of things that we're going to discuss, and they're all kind of interesting, so we'll see what happens moving forward, especially when you consider the first particular piece that we are going to cover, which is that Twitch is deciding to update and enforce their hateful content and harassment policy. And this is going to be twofold, where they're going to not only deal with some of the issues that occur and are being reported on Twitch, the platform itself, but sometimes that also carries over to off platform, where they have a little bit of wiggle room and understanding to investigate different claims. And then now the second category is going to be enforcing against serious offenses that pose a substantial safety risk to the Twitch community, even if these actions occur entirely off Twitch. So let's take a look at this. The other day, April 7th, so yesterday, they updated what their conduct and harassment policy would be. And there is FAQs at the bottom of this. But category 1, someone is harassed on Twitch as well as off Twitch. When this happens, we will take into account verifiable off-service behaviors or statements that relate to an incident that took place on Twitch. For example, if we are reviewing a harassment report about an incident that happened live on stream, related or continued harassment on Twitter could be taken into account when reported to us. This is how our current off-service policy works in the vast majority of cases and will not change. And the second, we will now enforce against serious offenses that pose a substantial safety risk to the Twitch community, even if these actions occur entirely off Twitch. Examples of these behaviors include deadly violence and violent extremism, terrorist activities or recruiting, explicit and or credible threats of mass violence, i.e. threats against a group of people, event, or location where people would gather, leadership or membership in a known hate group, carrying out or acting as an accomplice to non-consensual sexual activities and or sexual assault, sexually explicit imagery of children, such as child grooming and solicitation and distribution of underage sexual materials, actions that would directly and explicitly compromise the physical safety of the Twitch community, such as threatening violence at a Twitch event, and explicit and or credible threats against Twitch, including Twitch staff. Now, it's important to note that there are a number of allegations that spiral around because of the Me Too movement, and the greater Twitch saw this as well as a result of someone making a post about a particular well-known Destiny streamer, and it has sort of spiraled. As far as I'm understanding, that particular case is still going through the court system, and it is grueling and arduous and long, and very unfortunate, but, you know, this has to be obviously dealt with, and many people are being harassed, not just on Twitch, but off Twitch. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, this is great that they're extending their policy, that they are going to try and take action on people saying or doing some of these things off platform as they relate to people on Twitch. But there's also a second part to this as well. Additionally, we've created a dedicated email address where anyone can report egregious off-service misconduct in the categories above committed by a member of the Twitch community. That email is osit@twitch.tv. Any info sent to this address will be treated as confidential and only shared with a very limited group within Twitch and our third-party investigative partner. It's important to note that this is not intended to be a substitute for law enforcement or other safety processes, and we encourage reporting to the relevant legal authorities as the first step in these situations. To report other types of harmful or inappropriate behavior that occurs on Twitch, the best course of action is still to file a detailed report using the Twitch reporting tool, and a member of our safety team will review it. Now, that's good that there is a third party group that will also be looking into many of these allegations, because when you are dealing with law, it is complicated, and certain rules will and won't apply depending on the specific situation. And on top of that, while Twitch is backed by Amazon, they only have so much in resources in order to investigate some of these cases. So, in a lot of circumstances, Twitch had to look at situations where harassment was occurring on Twitch, where they would potentially have logs and viability to deal with these. But when it came to, screenshots or links to Twitter or Discord, a lot of people are extremely savvy when they use the internet, and they are adept at doctoring screenshots and doing different things like this, making it harder to prove or disprove a claim. And having a third party investigative service that works alongside law enforcement to find out what is able to be enforced is extremely important, and hopefully this will help the internet as a whole to stop a lot more of these harassing behaviors or sexually explicit behavior or anything like that. There is an FAQ here. Why doesn't this new policy address other serious offenses? These cases can be complex to investigate and verify, particularly when they take place entirely off Twitch. So we have focused on behaviors that have the greatest potential to harm our community. Most services do not address these situations, so we need to incrementally establish this capability as we learn from our initial launch. We're committed to finding ways to keep our community safe, and today's update is an important step in that ongoing body of work. We have prioritized the most serious offenses that pose an immediate physical safety threat in order to ensure we are equipped to take action when these impact our community. We feel strongly that this is a necessary step to protect our community, but we want to ensure we're able to handle these cases thoroughly and effectively. So, we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of things that sort of come from this, things that Twitch is not necessarily able to regulate. Twitch has users from all over the world, and working with law enforcement is great, but it also doesn't necessarily account for what is legal in other countries and what isn't legal, and it's actually far more complex than people might originally assume. So updating the policy is good. We'll see how this goes, because the fact of the matter is there are a lot of times where Twitch will say, hey, we're listening, we're doing all of these good things, da 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 da, but then turn around and only sometimes enforce their own rules, and sometimes just sort of let it slide under the carpet kind of deal. I like that they've updated the policy, and I like that they will be able to look at other sources where harassment can start before it sort of extends further on Twitch. We'll hopefully find out more about this and its effectiveness in the future. Right now, it is, hot off the press. Next up on the docket is Brazil launches inquiry to ban loot boxes. So, Game Industry Biz talked about this in an article on the 6th. Brazilian authorities have launched an inquiry aimed at banning loot boxes in the country on the recommendation of the National Association of Child and Adolescent Defense Centers. The association argued that the randomized monetization mechanics are a form of gambling which is illegal in Brazil, the Esports Observer reported. The inquiry targets companies that sell loot boxes, including Activision, EA, Konami, Nintendo, Riot Games, Ubisoft, Tencent, and Valve. Mobile games publisher Garena is also involved, with Brazilian publication The Enemy reporting that the firm has been asked to suspend its loot box sales until further notice. Should a ban be approved, Brazil is considering introducing fines for companies selling loot boxes up to 4 million, I guess, Brazilian dollars, pesos, which is around 706,000. I'm assuming that's American, daily. Uh, Daily. I would just like to emphasize that for every day that the ban moves forward, assuming a ban is implemented, each day that that is enforced or out, it will be 706,000. That could potentially be a lot of money if they decide to sweep it under the rug. Anyways, Germany recently passed a proposed reform which could result in new standards being applied to games featuring loot boxes. In the UK, a new report was published last week consolidating results from a dozen studies and saying that loot boxes are structurally, psychologically akin to gambling. And it is that last part that I clicked on and brought up the article about structurally and psychologically akin to gambling, and it is quite interesting. Again, this is a reference to another Game Industry Biz article. The charity called for policies to be put in place, including a clear definition of what constitutes a loot box, enforceable age ratings on games, full disclosure of the odds when purchasing, spending limits, and prices displayed in real currency as opposed to in-game currency. Dr. James Close, Senior Research Fellow at the University of Plymouth and co-author of the report, commented, "Our work has established that engagement with loot boxes is associated with problem gambling behaviors, with players encouraged to purchase through psychological techniques such as fear of missing out. We have also demonstrated that at-risk individuals such as problem gamblers, gamers, and young people make disproportionate contributions to loot box revenues. We have made a number of policy suggestions to better manage these risks to vulnerable people, although broader consumer protections may also be required." At the end of 2020, a study by the Gambling Health Alliance suggested that young people struggle to keep track of how much they have spent on loot boxes. 23% of 11 to 16-year-olds said they had paid money to open loot boxes, with 34% of all respondents saying they had first purchased them by the time they were 13 due to the lack of age restrictions on games containing the randomized monetization mechanic. Now, I have been a player of Rocket League for a long time, and originally there were crates that you received in game that you would have to either have the season pass to get keys through through the season pass to open these loot boxes, or you had to purchase the keys to open these loot boxes with a chance to get various skins or new car or whatnot out of the game. And this led to a lot of people wanting to trade their items, and if you opened those boxes with the keys that you earned through the season pass, you were no longer able to trade it like you were at the beginning of this sort of idea. And then um, it ended up being that they overhauled the system. So Psionics in the beginning changed the system so that there would no longer be loot boxes. You would play games and you would get access to blueprints of the different items. But other games, like I play Neverwinter. Neverwinter is a free-to-play MMO that's based on Dungeons and Dragons. It's a fantastic game. But every sort of season, we get a new random box or whatever where you can open these boxes to get a variety of different really cool items in the game. And it's things like that that are obviously the target of this. And so gambling is a real problem. There's a very good reason why, if you visit Las Vegas, any of the machines you sit close, the people that work there can come over and ID you just for sitting down. You have to be over the age of 21 to sit down. That is their law. In other places, it's a bit of a younger age. It's 18 or 19, depending on where you are. And I'm not really familiar with what the age restriction is on gambling in other countries, but it is well documented that children are extremely susceptible to things like FOMO, fear of missing out. And the fact that they are looking to stop loot boxes and ban them entirely in certain countries like Brazil, I see this as a good thing. There's FIFA is a very, very big game for whatever the hell reason. And they have all of these card packs and things that you can buy. And there was a report recently where the FIFA cards, some of these people were being contacted by staff saying, we can give you these super rare cards if you pay us like 10 grand or whatever. And it's kind of disturbing that there's that much of a market and that people can really make an ass ton of money, especially when you're looking at the younger age group and how much they're not really paying attention. They haven't learned about how to manage money properly. They haven't got those skills because the education system just does not teach people how to properly save money, how to deal with certain bills, how to make sure that you're financially secure for your future. These are things that really should be taught more in schools, And unfortunately, because they don't really have any kind of understanding as to why gambling is potentially harmful, then we look at this like this is kind of a very big problem. So I do hope that we're going to get more information about this, and I hope that more companies have to get rid of loot boxes and find other ways to monetize that are more fair to their community. Otherwise, places like EA continue to thrive. So, anyways, that is kind of my thought process on the loot box situation. I am curious to see what Brazil does if the ban actually goes through. And then maybe other countries will also follow suit with that as well. The last thing I want to cover is also another article that I came across on Game Industry Biz, which is Dontnod moves into third-party publishing. So, Dontnod has announced that it's moving into third-party publishing. The Life is Strange developer will be partnering with Danish studio Portaplay for its first publishing project. Dontnod describes the partnership as a co-production, adding that Portaplay is developing an original creation which is in line with the editorial vision and values of Dontnod. Head of development at Portaplay, Hans von Nutt, I can't say that last name, said that the studio feels called to work on games with meaning, adding that they want to make games combining solid game mechanics and storytelling about individuals in crisis situations tackling moral dilemmas. To support this move, Dontnod opened departments dedicated to publishing and marketing last year, the announcement noted. Xavier Spinat, head of publishing at Dontnod, said, as a publisher, we want to offer players experiences that are both accessible to the wider audience while setting the bar high regarding themes and quality of design. From our first discussions with Portaplay, it became clear to us that co-producing and publishing this original creation would allow us to expand our portfolio with a game complementary to our in-house productions while remaining true to our DNA. We will be able to bring our partner, our know-how, and our knowledge of the market in line with our community's expectations. Dontnod CEO Oscar Gilbert told Game Industry Biz last November that the studio wanted to be as independent as possible going forward. The company's latest game, Twin Mirror, was the first title they self-published, having previously worked in partnership with Square Enix, Focus Home Interactive, and Microsoft for previous titles. This is kind of interesting and important to me because so far things that Dontnod have come out with have been fantastic, and I want to see more. I want to see what else they've got in store for us, and publishing games on their own and remaining independent is huge. Hopefully they don't have to worry about the same scummy practices that a lot of AAA companies have pushed forward in the last God only knows how long. And we'll just see what happens from this. I'm very curious to see what other like moral dilemma style games that they come out with, because I do really enjoy the Life is Strange series, and I'm hoping that we get more content like this from game developers that call into question like what you believe to be true. I always find it very fascinating to see games like this. So we'll see what happens moving forward. I'm excited to find out everything sort of regarding this particular publishing foray. And that is what I have for you today. So, thank you very much for being part of Patreon and supporting the content. I hope you're really enjoying these gaming news videos. And if you have suggestions on topics for me to cover during the week, please feel free to let me know in Discord. I'm always willing to look at other things to discuss. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. You have a wonderful day.